Welcome, everybody, to the Zoom call on Supervision with Dr. Lois Dodds on Heartstream. My name is Harry Hoffman. I'm the coordinator of the Global Member Care Network. How about you introduce yourself? Who are you and what is your background?
Hello. First of all, Harry, thank you for giving me this privilege. I'm really honored. At age 11, I started out my career as a teacher and a counselor because I used to teach Sunday school for the small children. And then little by little, even into high school, I was doing counseling. But the Lord called me that year to become a missionary. So I ended up marrying Dr. Larry Dodds. He also felt called to missions at the age of 8. And we dedicated our lives to serving God. We first joined Wycliffe Bible Translators as medical missionaries. So we spent 23 years in Wycliffe Bible Translators. 14 of those were in the Amazon, where our kids grew up in the rainforest. So it was there we got our big introduction to the needs of missionaries. I had a lot of depression in those years. Larry had every disease he treated. In the end, after 14 years, he went through severe burnout before it had a name. But the Lord put in our hearts at that point to create a place for missionaries. So we came back to the States, and when he recovered, the Lord led us to found Heartstream Resources. We traveled the world for about 20 years, and it seems like everywhere in the world we went, missionaries said the same thing. Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if there was one place we could go and see the doctor who knows about missions and talk to a pastor and get some counseling and have some help with our family and understand things better. And the Lord used that to prompt us to start Heartstream in 1992. The Lord provided a place for us in Pennsylvania. We founded Heartstream, and during those years, we had literally hundreds and hundreds of people stay in our own home. We ended up with 5 homes to take care of the people who had come. 2 years ago, I moved down here to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, so I could be closer to one of my sons and his family. We wanted to be, totally competent professionally, but more important than that is spiritually attuned to what the Lord wants. So in all of our programs or counseling or medical care, we're seeking for the person to really feel God's healing at work in their lives. So after the 23 years in Wycliffe and 33 years in Heartstream, I have not retired because I feel that God wants me to continue. So I just want to encourage you that whatever the Lord has called you to, it's going to grow through the years and it may change, but his call is on your life. That's what Larry and I figured out. His call is on our life. We were brokenhearted to leave Peru, but we knew we had to. But the Lord assured us, just as with Moses being called to 3 places throughout his life, it was okay to change places, but we're still called to serve the Lord. So it's my joy to serve, Harry, in any way that I can, as God opens opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your introduction, your journey into missions, into the Amazon, and starting Heartstream. Our audience today are primarily member care providers. Yeah, how did you get involved in that, moving, just working for missionaries to working with providers of care?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say there was sort of a gradual evolution. We started programs first to care for missionaries in distress. We started in 1992. In 1996, our board said, you need to train more people, treat fewer people, but train more. So we were the first ones in the world then, 1996, to design a course in member care, kind of an evolution from treating people to training people. With Dr. Laura May Gardner, my colleague in Wycliffe, we decided we would do some textbooks. So that would be more going from beginning to end of what's important. Those textbooks are available on our website, a series of 3. And it starts with, how are people formed? I don't know if you ever asked the question, but who are you? Who am I? And the next question is, how did I get to be who I am? So, and then if I figure out who I am, the third question is, what would God have me do? What has He trained me for? So the textbooks cover the whole process of assessment, selection, what makes people effective in overseas work or cross-cultural work. And then the third volume is like a handbook for leaders. So I would say those 3 volumes and a lot of other publications, we kept going more into the training of member care people. So treatment's essential, but in order to do treatment, people have to be trained. Having been training people all these years, they call and say, well, what about this case? What about that case? So without ever actually planning to become supervisors, we become consultants. Another role that I truly enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you. I really like how you say from treatment to training to textbook. TTT.
Oh.
Is the textbook your Global Servant series?
Yes, our Global Servant series.
Yeah, let me show that briefly here. This is volume 1. This is on the website. You should be able to see this. Cross-Cultural Humanitarian Heroes, Global Servants. Volume 1, Formation and Development of these Heroes. Then this should be volume 2. Quick view is here. 12 factors in effectiveness and longevity with Larry Gardner from Wycliffe. And here we have Global Servants, the Art and Heart of Agency Care. Very good. So this is from, let me see, stop sharing here. So this is from treatment to training to textbook.
I never thought that way, but so that handbook, anyone doing member care, even if you're not the top leader in your organization, it's an excellent handbook. Like, what do you do when someone on the field commits suicide? I mean, that's a shocking experience anywhere, but it gives you practical tools and guidelines for how to handle difficult situations.
Thank you. So if we move closer to the consultation, case consultation, supervision, how did you come up with those answers?
I'll refer to Dr. Laura May Gardner, enormous experience worldwide in handling all the crises that occur. So she garnered tremendous experience of what works and what doesn't work. And those are the things that are especially in volume 3 of our textbook. So when we designed a training course, we took all of that into account, people's development, their as adults and even their child development, what they knew about their own personalities, whether they would fit into an organization and fit into a particular job. When we look at human development, which was my field and my husband's field in medicine, we want to take into account the main dimensions of human development. So there are 5. We always say SPEAR: spiritual, physical, actualizing, that's developing our potential, our relationships and our emotions. And then sometimes we say SPAROW, which adds to that, organization and culture. So that's just a framework. But for instance, if I'm going to treat a person or consult, I need to know, where is this person in their human development? Spiritually? Just because you're a missionary, you're not spiritually well developed. You may be a baby Christian and you're suddenly thrown into an environment where you have an accelerated Christian growth, because you suddenly have to deal with things which would be coming to people in more later stages of development. So we want to see, what is this person's personality? How did they grow up in their family of origin?
Great, thank you. Let me summarize briefly human development. You talked about the spiritual development, the physical or emotional? What was that?
Both, physical
Emotional,
and
the
emotional.
actualization, living out who you are, kind of. Then the relational and your organizational
Yes.
development. Is that right?
When we join a mission, most of us focus on where are we going, in our case, going to Peru. We learned all about Peru and we thought that would be the big influence. You know what we discovered? The mission you join or the organization, or if you don't join one, that has more power in your life. It has more influence than the country you go to. That was surprising to us because training at that point, almost any mission, they trained you for language and culture. They never trained you about what was going to happen inside of you in your own identity. They certainly didn't train you about the fact that the organization will have, I'm going to say, more power and more influence in your life than the country you go to. Um, so keeping in mind those things, when we consult, we always want to say, is a person we're discussing a good fit for their organization? We also discovered, having served hundreds of missions, every mission has a culture, an ethos, and I would say a personality. So you need to fit that organization in order to be effective.
Well, that is really profound. What you say? You say that the culture, that the organizational influence is almost bigger than the cultural influence. Like you moved to Peru with Wycliffe, so the influence of Wycliffe on your life was bigger than the influence of Peru in your life.
Yes, that's really true. It was true for us. We see it true to other people. I think people need to think carefully. What am I joining? Am I in sync with it spiritually and socially? Um, will it recognize me as a person of potential? So, who we join with is really crucial, Harry. I
You said
appreciate
every organization has a culture, a personality. I really like this. So, would you? I know many workers who have issues, problems with their organization. Would you advise them to leave their organization and change?
Well, I have kind of tiered recommendations. The first one is go talk to your leaders. Make sure you really understand. I mean, I remember counseling one lady, she had a 23-year backlog list of things she didn't like in her organization. But every time I said, well, who did you talk to? Oh, I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't tell anyone. She just nursed those resentments. So the first thing is always talk to your leaders. Be sure you really understand. If you find yourself in disagreement, work toward resolution, but become an agent of change. That's another key principle. If we want to make the world better, we should become skilled at becoming agents of change, both at a local level, how the dining room looks, or what's the policy for divorced people at the micro level, and then at the macro level in our organization. Can I be an agent of change? If I can do that, I can probably stay in my organization. But when I come to the point of saying we just don't fit, we don't agree on theology or policies, the best thing is actually to make a gracious exit. And for this very reason, we have a proliferation of mission agencies. I'm sure you've noticed, Harry, people leave one organization, start another. That's not necessarily bad, and that enters into spiritual development because at a certain stage in our spiritual life, which usually is around our 50s, we experience God at a deeper level. We become, of course, more experienced. And maybe God puts on our heart at that point to start something new. Now, that happened with us with Wycliffe. We were very happy in Wycliffe, but we felt led by God to start a Heartstream outside of Wycliffe. So, one of the positive outcomes of not fitting our organization is that God may lead us to create a different one or join a different one. So Wycliffe was not in the business of caring for missionaries per se. They do Bible translation. But when that became very heavy on our hearts, then we started the new. So it's not bad to leave an organization, but when we do, we need to know why and to do so graciously and with appreciation.
That's a very delicate walk as a external consultant to organizations. They invite you to take care of their members, and then the end result is some of the members leave the organization. That has
Yes,
to be a
that that is delicate, and it's happened. And so we're very upfront with the organizations, and sometimes we honestly say this person should not have entered mission. They were not prepared. They were not trained. The outcomes you see in their life are a result of lack of training and lack of maturity or whatever. So hopefully the mission does not feel offended. Sometimes the best thing we can do as consultants is say, we should minimize the damage and let this person go. However, you must care for them in that process. Whatever went wrong, make sure that you help them through that difficulty. And, through our years of experience with so many, many, many missions, I would say there's a whole range from caring for people as they exit to just dropping them. That hurts. We also have to consider the constituency, because for every missionary who drops out or might be asked to resign, there are thousands of people in their churches who are watching. So we want to be sure to have good recommendations that honor their constituency. We give the most honorable exit plan, and sometimes it's total exit, sometimes it's time out.
The most honorable exit plan. Be gracious and be open with the organization there as well. Let's move on to another topic, on supervision, member care. You've been around the world, 50 nations or more. You work with different nationalities in national mission movements and cultures. What would you say are the blind spots in member care? Are there needs there that are not addressed yet?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. I've been thinking about it since you told me the other day. I think the blind spots are to not recognize how much the system contributes to a person's either their well-being or their distress. So if we just go by, let's say, the individual or the family and their trouble, if that's all we look at, we're missing the big picture. So we want to take the big picture. What is the influence of the mission system on the person? Another example would be not allowing women to be leaders in the organization. Well, if I'm a woman and God's given me leadership ability, maybe my system squelches that. So I need to say, it's not just that I'm suffering by not fulfilling my potential, but what does the system have to do with it? And that's where we decide, can I be an agent of change and graciously help change things, or do I need to exit, have an exit plan? When I say system, I'm talking about a mission organization, and along with that formal organization, there's an informal culture. So just as there's a culture in the organization, there's an informal culture. Now, I experienced hearing leaders say things that they said off the record, but they revealed their own biases, which were often in contrast to official policy. I would say those often had to do with the role of women in the organization. So in policy, a woman had privileges to be a leader, but behind the scenes, the informal culture stifled the opportunities that women could have. So the system is both the formal culture or the recognizable culture. We see that through policies, but there's an informal culture, which often is more powerful. So if we study systems, we have to look at those different levels.
And as you just shared, I visualize my life in China. I have an organization, which is a system, but there is also a local Christian mission community that is a system. There is a local, not just the mission community, but also the national community and the nation of China, my host nation, and my own nation have different levels of cultural influences that would be then considered, yeah, the system, as you say.
Yes, that's true, because again, they're layers. The most direct one would be the official organization, but your constituency, that's another one we have to sort out. Who's speaking for God? I remember one of our furloughs, I think it was our third furlough, our own pastor said to us, I don't want you to go back to Peru. We're shocked. And we said, why not? The church has supported us. My husband had been a founding member of that church as a teenager. That was the pastor who married us. I mean, he had great influence on our life. And he said, I don't want you to go back. And we were shocked. It's like, well, why not? Wycliffe wants us back. Everybody in Peru wants us back. He said, well, you need to stay in the States now and mentor young missionary doctors. Well, that was really hard for us. He has some kind of spiritual authority in our life. But we realized right at that point, there were 7 entities who said they were speaking for God. Oof, which one is God's voice? So that's another thing that we're going to struggle with. And sometimes the people we serve are struggling with that, So it's never easy to decide, well, which voice is God's voice? Is it the mission or your field leader or your pastor back home? Or which of your 7 pastors is it speaking for God? So it can be pretty complicated.
Yeah, which voice of God are you listening to? I like this.
Yeah, when they don't agree.
Yeah, who are you listening to? Yeah, that also speaks into your personal spiritual development as missionaries, as member care providers on the field to gain discernment and understanding about the different voices. Very good.
Yes, so important.
So I think we are 100 people now in this Zoom call. Many of us are member care providers, people working with missionaries, people working in training, in consulting. What would you like to tell us? Like something specific, please do this and this.
Okay. Yes. Well, I'll use a recent example. This particular family were referred to us by their member care. It was a cross-cultural marriage. The husband's identity had been created through years and years and years of work and training and study. Now he's midlife. Okay, he's married to someone from a different culture. The family had teenage daughters, and they've only grown up in one country. And now the whole family is going to have a major transition. The father is going to have to change his identity from this highly trained, very specific skill to more of a generalist. The mom is going to hit empty nest very soon because the teenage daughters are going to go into the other culture, different schools, and then before long, they'll be off to college. So what do we need to think about? Well, the whole matter of identity is absolutely crucial. The mom's development, which needs to broaden, like most women with an empty nest, have to say, what's next? Teenage daughters, what are their needs right now as they face major transition away from homeschooling to a big international school, and then later going on to college? So looking at the needs of everyone in the family and the needs of the organization, what do we say is important? Well, we need to consider all of those in order to help this family make a good adjustment. So it's not just the dad and his identity, though that's really important, because we have a highly, highly trained and skilled person. If it's not handled well, he could plunge into depression, because who am I now? The mom could plunge into depression with an empty nest, and she's now in a new culture without friends. These girls are going to lose everything familiar as they go off. And it's a stage of life where, adolescence, there are just a lot of hazards. So we want to look at all those factors to help this family. And I feel like, I think we did a good job with it.
Great, thank you. What I learned from you, listening to you, you like a big picture. You like the system, the big picture. You need to listen. Now, your last example, you have a family. You need to see every person in the family plus the organizational well-being in all of this as the family is transitioning.
Yes, another example, a family, a missionary family, it was reported to the leaders that one of the children, was just not doing well at all. Well, what it turned out is the child was practically deaf, but she had never been tested. No one realized she could not hear. Now, how could a mission solve that problem? Well, there was nowhere in their local resources that would attend to that need. Mom was very depressed because the child's not doing well. Dad's, let's say his career now as the missionary, the primary missionary, now is threatened because in order to care for the child, he's going to have to make some changes. So that's another example where you look at all the members of the household, and then you look at the organization. Is there anyone they can partner with? Sometimes another mission on the same field might have resources. Sometimes they don't. So again, I like the big picture idea. We look at, we want to help the organizations, obviously, to keep their people and at the same time provide for the needs of individuals.
A collaborative, systemic collaborative approach to care, to caring for individual needs.
Another positive change in 50 and 100 years is that missions have learned to share resources in a way they were reluctant to do even 50 years ago. So maybe I need to have my child tested for dyslexia. Nobody in my mission can do that. But you know what? Next door mission might have someone available. So collaborating, I think, has really strengthened the whole missionary movement.
Thank you. Thank you, Lois. Yeah, we're coming to an end now. Yeah, how can people connect with you, Lois, if they are interested to learn more about your resources and your trainings?
Well, thank you, Harry. First of all, our website, people can write through the website, info@Heartstream Resources. You can email me through that. It'll come to me directly if it's sent through Heartstream Resources. I want to remind you all, we have many, many resources on the website, booklets that help you, as well as some of them missionaries can give to their families to help, such as the one on identity, the help your family understand about stress. So some of those resources can go directly to missionaries and their families. Some of them relate more to the member caregiver. But I would suggest checking out those. There are also radio programs, member care radio, so many, and there's also videos on our website. So you can find a topic that you're interested in and tap into those through the website, both the radio scripts and the voices, the videos. But to contact me personally, just write through the website.
Thank you. We come to a formal close here. Thank you, Lois, for this interview, for taking the time. And yeah, hopefully many of us will continue to connect with you, with your resources and your trainings, and benefit from the richness of your experience in member care. Thank you so, so much.
Well, thank you, Harry. I appreciate being with you all.